Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. If memory serves me correctly, this will be review number 3 involving these guys, and this beer is a little bit different to the ones we've had from them previously. So for this review then, we are going to head down to Salford near Manchester, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Pomona Island Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called the Astronomy Domine. It comes in at 8% ABV, and they're describing this one as a peach, coconut and vanilla double IPA. So yeah, Untappd actually lists this one as an Imperial Milkshake IPA or Milkshake double IPA, however you want to call it. But yeah, I think this should be really quite interesting. This brewery have mainly made their name for doing, you know, kind of very quirky styles of beer, and also adding lots of different and random adjuncts into their things as well. But they've got a very, very good reputation these days. They do seem to be a little bit hyped, and I've certainly enjoyed the beers that I've had from them so far. So the first beer that I had from these guys was a collaboration Scotch ale that they did with 71 Brewing in Dundee up here in Scotland, and it was quite a sour Scotch ale actually. It was really, really quite quirky actually. The last beer that I did from them was my first dedicated review to this brewery, and that was called the Uvavu, a black sour double IPA, which I thought was very, very interesting, not like anything else I'd had before. And now we have this one, which is like a big kind of milkshake double IPA from what I understand. So yeah, very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. Definitely nice to return to Pomona Island Brewing once again, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Pomona Island Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so we can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland of Scotland, and the English beers are very accessible. Never a bad thing, because there's a really thriving beer scene down there these days that you should check out if you get the chance. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Pomona Island Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Pomona Island Brewing Company, as I mentioned to you already, are based in Salford near Manchester, and the company was founded back in 2017. So the 4 men behind this brewery are Gareth B, formerly of Marble Brewery, one of the more established and older craft breweries in Manchester, actually definitely worth checking out. James Dyer is also there. He used to work for Tempest here in Scotland, who are probably one of my favourite Scottish breweries actually. They do some really, really interesting beers as well. But then there's also Nick Greenhall and Ryan Thompson, who together founded the Green Lamp Bar, and that's somewhere that I do want to check out at some stage. But the brewery takes its name from a nearby island that can be found just around from Media City, UK, where the brewery was based. And these days they're running a 10 BBL brew kit, and they've got an on-site tap room as well, which I think was quite recently closed down because they have just moved. So they did have an on-site tap room, and they sold a lot of their beers there, as well as in the Green Lamp Bar that I mentioned earlier. But these days, and more recently, they've been collaborating with Camden Town Brewery on a project called Escape to Free Island. There's lots of really interesting things there, like different food trucks, you know, there's like a roller disco, and just lots of really random stuff. I think there's going to be a cinema there as well, actually, by the sounds of it. But this is now where the Pomona Island Brewery tap room is going to be located. This is going to be their main kind of point of sale, if you like, actually. So that's definitely a place that I need to go and check out the next time I make it down to kind of Liverpool and Manchester area. But yeah, I think that will be a really interesting place to see. But apparently it looks pretty impressive when you look at the photos and the layout and things like that. So if you want Pomona Island beers, once the whole COVID thing lifts, you can go down to that Escape to Free Island project and check that out. But yeah, as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced over 150 different kinds of beers, and as I mentioned earlier, they've really made their name for kind of doing very quirky things with quite well established beer styles. For example, you know, the black sour double IPA and things like this. So yeah, there's lots of really random stuff in these Pomona Island beers. You know, lots of milkshake IPAs, different adjuncts and stuff like this. So yeah, if you like adjunct beers, then you are certainly going to enjoy the stuff that Pomona Island Brewing have to offer. But even the ones that are very quirky and unusual, they do tend to work. You know, it's some of these beers you get from Pomona Island, you think, oh, it's really unusual, but somehow it just works actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Pomona Island Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to see more regular reviews of beers from this brewery, you're probably best to check out my friend Adam at Mersey Beers, or perhaps Peter the Clueless Drinker. He's probably got the best access to the beers from this brewery, but then again, all of the English beer tubers do have fairly easy access to these guys through web shops and things. So yeah, you probably will see quite a lot of them reviewing some of these Pomona Island beers for you. But yeah, do check out all those channels down there. But in the meantime, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So just to tell you a little bit about this one, like I said, this is an 8% Imperial Milkshake IPA. Apparently it's hopped with Sabro, which, as we know, gives you lots of kind of big orangey notes, as well as a bit of coconut and stuff. There's peach, coconut and vanilla added into this one, along with lactose. So yeah, I think this one should be really quite interesting. But yeah, I picked this beer to review just because I like the name. You know, I studied astrophysics, and so I like the astronomy thing, so Astronomy Domine, I just like that. And then again, the beer sounded quite nice as well, a peach, coconut and vanilla double IPA. But yeah, the last beer that I did from these guys came from the dark end of the spectrum, so I thought it's probably a good idea to check out something from the lighter end as well. But it says on the back here, flicker, 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 bam, pow, pow, peach, coconut and vanilla, Sabro and milk sugar in a double IPA. So yeah, that should be quite nice. This one, 440ml can. I think I paid about £6 for this beer. So yeah, maybe about €7-ish, $7.50 American, and yeah, maybe about 65, 70 Swedish kroners for those of you watching over there. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And I'll tell you something, you can see the colour of this before you bring it out of the can. But yeah, look at this. This, I think, is going to be a monster. There we go. Sugar up the last little bit. Let's stick that in there. Yeah. That looks pretty impressive, I have to say. Ooh. So yeah, peach, coconut and vanilla double IPA. I think this will be really interesting. Not often that you find peach added into beers actually, but you could see when we poured the beer there was a solid finger of quite a frothy, perfect white head there. That's fading away to just be absolutely nothing on the top there, but I'm sure there will be a little bit of a foamy ring just around the edge of the glass there. But it does say on the side of this one that it's got oats and wheat in it actually. So yeah. This one, I think, I would have thought it would retain a little bit of its head. But as you can see, this beer is poured a lovely, kind of rich. I mean, I always like comparing these sort of hazy type IPAs to different fruit juices and things. This one just looks like a mango juice. It really does just look like a little bit of mango juice, to be honest with you. So yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, if we shine the light through this one, the beer is pretty damn hazy, I have to say. And that's kind of to be expected when you've got a milkshake IPA and you've got oats and wheat and these kind of things. Usually the milkshake IPAs do get a good little bit of thickness to them. So remember, when it comes to the colour of your beers, it's dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of the boil that you do during the wort. So the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour out of the beer. But then again, it's dependent in the first instance on what malts it is that you use. So yeah, in terms of the how do you say? In terms of the head on this one, you know, it has a little bit, that head will fade away. There's maybe not so much wheat in this one, but the level of haziness that you get out of these beers is dependent on the oats, the wheat, and in this case, I guess, the lactose as well. So different beers have different kind of ratios of wheat and oats, but usually it's just the sheer amount of these kind of things that you actually put in the beer that determines how hazy it is. But it certainly looks just like a kind of regular hazy New England double IPA, to be honest with you. But like I say, this one should be considered more of a kind of milkshake IPA. But yeah, certainly looks the part. It looks very, very nice. Nothing overly surprising about this one when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Oh yeah, that's, yeah, big, candied, smooth. sort of sugary beer. This, the vanilla comes out straight away, and the coconut as well. The coconut and vanilla just jump out of this beer at you, and they are dominating the aroma, absolutely. So yeah, coconut and vanilla right away with this one, and they're just kind of mixing together to form this. It's almost like it smells like Bounty, you know, that Bounty chocolate bar in a sense. It's almost like that. But yeah, it smells very, very nice. You can sort of smell the oats and the lactose just kind of giving this beer a very kind of candied vibe. Other than that, you can pick up a wee tiny bit of wheat and a wee bit of white breadiness to it, but I mean overall it's quite yeah, it's quite unusual how all of that goes together, to be honest with you. I really like how that kind of comes together. Yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think, is really quite interesting. I mean, you've got a whole host of different kind of things in there. You can smell the peach, and the peach, because of the vanilla and the kind of oatiness and everything else, the peach comes across as very kind of smooth, if you like. I always thought that peach had a little bit more of a kind of sharpness to it, but yeah, you do get that distinctive peachy aroma to it, but then it just comes across as very, very kind of soft. There are a few other sort of fruity elements coming out of the beer. You know, you can smell a little bit of the kind of orangey character that you'd expect from Sabro. There is a wee bit of a kind of soft, like papaya, apricot-y kind of thing in there as well. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer is dominated by the peach. But like I say, you get a more oily, orangey note at the kind of front of the nose as well. It almost has a little bit of a kind of banana-like like quality to it, this beer as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the aroma out of this is crazy. Yeah, but when they say I think, yeah, the coconut and the vanilla are quite dominant in it, but the peach, I think, takes a little bit of a back seat. The peach almost feels like it's kind of blended in to those two other aromas, if you like. So yeah, I really like how the aroma of this one goes together. In terms of the hoppy side of things, I mean, you get a little bit of a kind of you do get a little bit of a kind of grassiness out of the beer, a little bit of a floral character, but otherwise it's not it isn't too much, to be honest with you. There's not too much kind of on that how do you say, yeah, there's not too much kind of coming out of the kind of hoppy side of the beer, to be honest with you. So yeah, a little bit of grassiness, a little bit of floral character, but otherwise not too much going on. But yeah, really interesting smelling beer, this one, I have to say. A very, very quirky aroma, but that's what you can kind of expect of Pomona Island Brewing Company. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say in this one. So yeah, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, we're going to have a taste of this one then and just see how we get on. I think this will be a really interesting beer. So yeah, this is the Astronomy Domine, an 8% peach, coconut and vanilla double IPA, basically an Imperial Milkshake IPA, to be honest with you, from Pomona Island Brewing Company in Salford, next to Manchester. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's very nice actually. It's quite, you know, I'm surprised at this. It's kind of stupidly drinkable for an 8% Imperial Milkshake IPA. It's crazy. It's very, very smooth, but still quite oily and quite slick in a way. And you get a lot of these kind of adjuncty flavours out of it in the aftertaste. That's a really interesting one, actually. Yeah. And you know, I have to say, I can see why this brewery are getting quite a bit of interest, because their beers are really quite unique. They're not really straight shooting by, you know, in any kind of sense of the word. These are quite different to pretty much all the other English beers that I've reviewed for you on the channel so far. But yeah, this is a very, very sweet IPA. I mean, the last English milkshake IPA I can think of that I had was the $10 Shake from Siren. That's a beautiful, beautiful beer, incidentally. I think that's still one of the best ones I've had from Siren over the years, but this is a lovely, lovely beer. But yeah, I think this one, everything in this beer just kind of fits together very, very nicely. So yeah, I do like how this goes together. It's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I would be very curious to try like a sort of straight up beer from these guys at some stage. I know that mainly they're known for these kind of the slightly sour beers, the adjuncty type beers, but I think my next port of call with these guys does have to be a kind of straight shooting beer. So the next time I'm home, I will see about getting a kind of normal beer, if you like, from these guys and seeing how that turns out. But yeah, this one I think is very nicely executed, but very kind of candied, if you like. It does remind me to a degree of the Omnipollo ones that I've had before. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably a good comparison to make, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then, and just see how we get on. So straight away with this beer, you can feel the lactose just blanket in the middle of your palate there. That kind of just forms the absolute base of the beer. Pardon me, although in fairness, underneath that you do get a little bit of a kind of pale malty character, which I think is quite interesting. So yeah, a little bit of pale malty note coming out of this one. You've got a good, on that, on top of that, you get a nice little bit of a kind of oaty smoothness there, and you can feel the kind of coconuts feel as if, the coconutty flavours feel as if they're kind of, you know, they feel as if they're kind of, how do you say, sort of integrated into that kind of oaty component of the beer. So the coconut really feels that it's kind of inside of that, and then the vanilla sort of comes out a little bit more towards the front of that middle third of your palate. So yeah. So yeah, I like how, pardon me, I do like how this beer goes together. It's very, very different, I have to say. It's quite different from the other milkshake IPAs I've had before, and admittedly I've not had many of those, maybe only about 5 or 6 in the entire history of the channel. But I certainly like what this beer is going for, actually. Coconut, you know, coconut was never my favourite flavour, if you like, but I think it works really well in this beer, along with the vanilla. But it does, you know, having the both of those in this beer really makes the beer feel very, very sort of candied, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that descriptor I've given you, that middle third of your palate, is quite good. A little bit of pale malt underneath, the lactose kind of sits on top of that and smoothens out the whole beer. Then you get some of the oaty thickness just sitting on top of that. The coconut feels as if it kind of sits around that almost oaty circle there, so you get that coconutty quality. Then on the front half of that middle third of your palate, you've got a more kind of vanilla element coming out of it. I think that covers the middle part of your palate in this beer quite nicely. So if you go to the back of that kind of front, that middle third of your palate, sorry, to that border region between middle and back third of your palate, to me there's a wee bit of an almost kind of citrusy, zesty quality to this one, which is, it's really interesting in that sense. I really think that's kind of strange how that comes out, but I really like what it's doing. I really like how that goes together. So yeah, there is a wee bit of a kind of citrusy, zesty type quality comes out of the beer from that perspective. But yeah, on the back third of the palate then you can feel a little bit of bitiness from the wheat, but again the lactose kind of sits on top of that and just smoothens the beer out. I think the coconut actually even reaches that far back in the beer as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, that back third of your palate feels a little bit thicker, a little bit of bitiness from the wheat, some lactose on top, and then a wee bit of a kind of coconutty vibe sticking in it. But the really unusual thing is that sort of citrusy quality in that border region between middle third and back third of your palate. So yeah, I really like how this goes together. Yeah, I think it's just a really interesting and quite quirky beer, I have to say. I like how everything pieces together in this one. It's a beer that grows on me, definitely. I thought maybe when I tried it at first it was a bit too sort of candied and sweet, but it's really grown on me as I've taken a few more kind of sips of it. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate there is a tiny little bit of earthiness there, but as you move further forward the earthiness fades away, it becomes a little bit herbal, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate it builds in aromaticity, and you do get quite a big sort of aromaticity coming out of this beer the more that you drink of it. Round the front curve of the palate you can feel a little bit of grassiness in there. It does have a wee bit of zest to it as well, but as I always say, when you add fruit as an adjunct into beer it sort of suppresses a little bit of the green component of the hop, and you can feel that soft, juicy, kind of peachy quality kind of just sitting on top of that actually. So yeah, that's something that you really need to note about this beer as well, is that it's quite it is pretty you know, it's pretty kind of, it's got a good little bit of zest and a little bit of sharpness to it as well, which I think is great. But yeah, I do like how everything pieces together in this beer, as I've said a few times now. But yeah, let's focus on that front third of your palate, because that's where you get the oily, the more juicy, oily, fruity qualities from the hops there. And I mean, for me, the Sabro that you've got in this, the Sabro is kind of contributing to the coconutty vibe of the beer. So it feels, on that front third of your palate, it feels as if you've got a little bit more of a kind of crisp, almost pale malty quality in there, and then some kind of coconut things just coming out there as well. But you do get a kind of soft, tangerine orangey kind of thing sitting there, and that is the signature of Sabro. I mean, it has that, just that orangey sort of, some people have said it's like pina colada sort of thing. I've seen that descriptor for Sabro go about as well, and I think it does fit quite well. So the fruity side of your beer and the oily part of your palate is definitely more kind of just orangey, if you like. But yeah, you've got a nice kind of peachy softness around the front edge of your tongue there, which I think works very, very well with this beer. So yeah, this one gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. I mean, the peaches definitely come out on that kind of front edge of the tongue, and they do have a little bit of zestiness and sharpness to them, but mainly I think the more that you go, the further that you go into the aftertaste, you get a wee bit of the citrusy quality pushing its way out of the beer. But otherwise, this beer is very kind of soft, smooth, and quite candied in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. This, a very, very quirky beer, I have to say, but it has grown on me, definitely. I like what they've done with this one. So again, thumbs up to Pomona Island, because they've been quite inventive with this, and that seems to be the approach they take with quite a few of their beers. So yeah, I think next beer that I try from these guys has to be, you know, I think it has to be something that's a little bit more, you know, straight shooting, maybe like a regular New England IPA and a regular West Coaster, if I can get a hold of that. So I'll maybe talk to Adam and Peter and see what they recommend from these guys for my next review. But yeah, something more straight shooting, I think next time is definitely in order. But yeah, I can see, as I said, you know, I can see why these guys are getting quite a bit of attention if this is the sort of stuff that they're producing. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile. It's quite a straight shooting beer in a lot of ways. It's definitely not the most complex one that I've come across, but it's one of these ones where just everything works really well together actually, and it tastes great. It's really nice. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer is kind of to the top end of mid-bodied, the bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation's very smooth. It's got a bit of a kind of slickness to it in a sense, and I really appreciate how that side of the beer goes together too. So yeah, it's a real kind of slick and smooth beer. It's not quite so creamy, but I think the lactose gives it a real sort of oiliness, if that makes sense. So yeah, in terms of the how do you say, in terms of the hoppy bitterness and stuff, this beer I think has maybe about 10 or so IBUs. There's not a lot of IBUs in this beer, which means that the Sabro will have been used basically as a late addition hop. But this beer seems as if it's maybe, you know, have 5-10 IBUs at most, I would say. So yeah, that's quite an interesting point to make about this beer for sure. So yeah, 5 to 10 IBUs. The malt base, like I say, is very smooth and almost comes across as quite thick in a lot of ways, but the lactose really smoothens everything out. In this one, it builds a bit of sweetness the further you go into the aftertaste. There is a wee bit of a kind of citrusy zest to this beer as well, like I said. A little tiny touch of sourness almost in that border region and between the middle third and back third of your palate. But then you've got a lovely kind of soft, smooth, juicy, fruity quality to it. You get a little bit of more oily fruit from the Sabro as well, but the coconuts I think really linger in this beer, and you get the vanilla sweetness. It's almost kind of candied, this one, to be honest with you. But it's a lovely, lovely beer, this. I think this is for me, this is a more sharing one. I'm going to share this beer with my dad after the review, but yeah, this is definitely more of a sharer for me. I think, you know, a third pint of this would probably be, I would treat something like this more as a taster than a kind of sessioner, if you like. But yeah, it's very, very nicely done, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So well done to Pomona Island Brewing Company for this. But as I say, I think a lot of the beers I have from these guys would be like, this is the sort of brewery that I potentially wouldn't session their beers. I would just want to go there and taste a little bit of everything, because they strike me as very experimental. That would be how I would treat this brewery, to be honest with you. So yeah, quite an experimental and quite quirky brewery, this one, if that's your thing. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. I think this has been a really interesting one to take a look at. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are. from Pomona Island Brewing Company as well. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future, but in the meantime this was a very nice beer to review. You'll probably see more reviews from these guys in maybe September or something like that. But yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from this brewery, and you know, we will return to these guys very soon. Until the next time, stand just now, and I'll catch you guys later. This one was the Astronomy Domine, an 8% Imperial Milkshake IPA, or a peach, coconut and vanilla double IPA as they're calling it, from Pomona Island Brewing Company in Salford, next to Manchester, down in England. Slange, skull, cheers, and catch you guys on the next review. Make sure you check out these guys and have a go at some really quirky beers. Cheers.